Welcome back to the Sacred Arts channel, where we talk about all things from the practical to the sacred. Today, I am honored to be talking about sacred alchemy with my dear shamanic sister, Lauren Morgan. Lauren is the visionary behind Journey of the Sacred, a passionate healer and mentor. Lauren is committed to assisting souls on their transformative paths of healing and self realization, drawing from a rich tapestry of experiences in spiritual and emotional healing. She has seamlessly blended age old wisdom with cutting edge techniques. Her flagship program, Sacred Alchemy, stands as a beacon of her dedication to unveiling the inner warrior within every individual, guiding them to move beyond their past and into a luminous future. Whether you're delving into personal tribulations or ascending towards spiritual enlightenment, Lauren stands ready to accompany you on every twist and turn of your journey. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. What an introduction. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, Jazzy.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. And I'm so excited to dive a little bit deeper and get to know you a little bit more in regards to how did you start this journey that you're on today, from both a spiritual and a business perspective?
Wow, yes. So, gosh, it's always a big question. So simple, but so complex at the same time. Like, right? Like, whatever is that simple. But it all started for me as my own personal journey of self healing. I experienced decades worth of traumas from when I was 6 years old to my mid 20s, just reoccurring evolution of trauma after trauma after trauma, both across all realms, really, like sexual, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all the above. And it was at a rock bottom of my rock bottoms, I call it, where I remember I was actually walking across a field with my dogs, and they were just joyously playing, hopping, and running the grass like dogs do. And their joy, it was it was wild. Seeing how much joy they had made me so angry because I realized I didn't have that joy in my life. And I fell to the ground. I was crying, I was screaming, and I literally threw two middle fingers up at the sky. I cursed out the universe for like 5 minutes, just being like so upset that my life had been so much pain and so much suffering and so many difficult experiences, and it didn't make sense to me. I thought God hated me. And so, in that moment of screaming and this very dramatic moment that I was having with myself in the field, I had this voice inside of me saying that life wasn't meant to be this hard. And that shook me because it came from what I felt like was nowhere. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself to heal myself, no matter what venture it took, no matter what direction, no matter the modality. I was ready just to fully understand what it felt like to not carry all of these traumas with me anymore. And that's how it started. It started as this my own path of self-discovery and self-healing. And I learned through many mentors and teachings that we all have this really beautiful ability to self-heal, but it needs to be awakened. It needs to be remembered. It needs to have all those pieces moved away of what society is telling us to be, so we can decide and we can remember what it is to be our truest and best self. And that piece of us is self healing. It's that beautiful piece of intuition that will guide us on this cosmic trail of breadcrumbs to our next modality of healing, or to the next mentor, or to the next whatever it may be. Our own inner compass is guiding us forward. We just have to learn how to sit down and listen.
Mm, that's so beautiful because I think that a lot of us listening can absolutely identify with that tower moment of just feeling like we got cheated, or like, like God just does not love us. And I know I've had that moment, and I'm sure many people can identify with that. Thank you so much for sharing that vulnerable moment. And I do think that what we learn in society as we grow up from our parents, our siblings, our aunts, uncles, school, our peers, teachers, even what's on TV, like the rhetoric or like the storylines that certain sitcoms have, we do tend to kind of view the world in a certain way. And so for you to get that message and you be willing to be open to it, because I know it took me like 10, 15 years to be like, even the idea of prayer to come back
Yeah.
into my life. I was just so stubborn. And so I love your messaging around, remembering who we are and that we are have this ability to heal ourselves, and that whatever we're going through in that moment, it's not going to last. Whether it's happiness or trauma, it's just not going to last because things are ever changing. And so for you to be that conduit to remind people and all these beautiful tools, which brings me to my next question. I'd like to know a little bit more about what inspired you to create Sacred Alchemy.
Yes, thank you for that question. And it was really just following my own intuition. I learned how to get out of my own way. And I dove into Ayurveda and shamanism, hypnosis, and all these different healing modalities, just searching for the next piece to really deepen my own personal healing. And then I started sharing them with my friends, my family, my pets, my dogs. And I was really starting to observe that the more I healed myself, and the more tools I gathered, that the people around me started shifting as well. And the more I started sharing these pieces, even these small little tokens here and there, it had a really big impact on them. But a lot of us are missing, because there is no roadmap for this. There's no roadmap for anybody. But when it comes down to it, we have our own very unique path, and we have to learn to trust the process. And that's a really huge piece, is trusting the process of divine timing and how it plays out for each one of us. And the more I sat with nature, the more I understood and started to observe that there are some things in this universe that is helpful and healing for everybody. And that one of those pieces is sitting with nature more. One of those pieces is shedding the past, or learning from our past and turning our pain into purpose in our own unique way, and using these different, I should say, techniques available to make them in a package that is so helpful for each individual person that the healing potential is just immeasurable. And so as I started to work more with clients, or with, at the time, it was more just friends of the family, and just following how that went, I really just became so, what's the word I'm looking for? So just mind blown that the healing practices of nature are just so profound. And that's the big piece of my work in this program, is using the sacred elements. Each one has its own energetic qualities to it, and using each one in a very strategic way to further along your healing in a very beautiful and nurturing and wholesome package.
I love that. There is no one way, no one size fits all.
There is not, and that's what I love so much about shamanism and Ayurveda, is that they don't focus on the one size fits all. Like you said, it's a very unique approach. They have these principles that can be intertwined and laid into your life, but for every season is changing, right? For every season of our life, for every season of the year, for the time of day, it's all very intricate and moving and fluid. And as we learn to dive into that fluidity, is really what when we learn to separate ourselves from needing to control our surroundings so much.
Mm. So I know that we all have different archetypes that live within us. We have the mother, we have the father, we have, the child. Why did you choose specifically to invite the warrior archetype within us?
Oh yes, this is when you're just saying those words, I feel it's fire inside of me, because a lot of us, we spend so much time fighting through life, and it's a really powerful and resilient quality to have this like fire and this urge and this like this wanting just to keep improving and just to keep going. But we can learn to take that warrior quality and mold it and mend it and work with it, so we can have it fight for us instead of against us. A lot of times, the harder we try to fight through something, we notice that it just kind of goes the wrong way pretty quickly. It doesn't go the direction we want it to. And so when you can take those qualities and fight for yourself, and a lot of times when I work with a lot of women actually who have experienced deep traumas in their life, that's my specialty. And it takes a warrior. It takes a warrior to admit that you have these traumas. And it takes a warrior to admit that you have this pain and you have these rememberings of past moments you're trying to work through. It takes a warrior to admit that you have triggers and you want to work through them instead of having them rule you. And it takes a warrior to know that you are so much more than what society tells you are. You're so much more than your weight or your looks or your body or your role you play in your life. You're so much more than just a mother or a father or whatever figure or story you tell yourselves. You're so much more than that. And there's these really beautiful qualities about the warrior that are resilient and courageous. And it takes all of those elements to really fight through those traumatic moments and know that there is peace at the end of the tunnel, and you can heal through them. So that is where the warrior comes in.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. When I think of the word sacred alchemy, I think of deep, deep transformation, almost magic when it comes to the soul, right? When I hear sacred, I think of the layers within me and getting down deep into like the root cause and for just magical transformation. Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails, within your program, and how does it help transcend in, what we've lived through in the past?
Yes, thank you. So when we alchemize something, we're shifting its qualities. And so when we know what the current quality is say we have this anger within ourselves, we can repurpose that. It's almost like up leveling, upgrading this anger. And we sit with it, we feel into it, we use all these beautiful qualities from nature, and we observe what anger feels like in our bodies, and we acknowledge it and give it a voice. That's a really important piece, is not to tell ourselves not to feel something. Because the more you feel it, the more you presence it, the more it is willing and open to change and to evolve. But if you put it in a box and tell yourself it's not there, you can't work through it. So it's acknowledging this feeling, and then you start to shift it and change it. And it's through these practices that I will share in this program that it's such a magical feeling. I love how you bring that up, because it is like magic when you can sit with these feelings that have been haunting you for so long and use them to propel you forward into this new higher perspective of you. And so there's this really magical transition you can feel in your body, energetically and physically, as the anger starts to move out and you make more space for the other feelings you want to bring in, such as fulfillment and joy and happiness and love and all of these other pieces that we're so longing for. But we all start with just acknowledging where we are in the present and the current emotions that we're feeling, so then we can work through them, adjust them, change them, alchemize them into the feelings and the callings we want to bring in.
Mm, I love that. It sounds like hard work. It sounds like it's not for the faint of heart.
I have to admit that there are moments where you're in this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is something. And it does take work. But it's one of those things that you know inside that it's totally worth it, because time is going to, the theory of time, right? We age, we progress in life, and these days keep going no matter what. And that's something that I work with my clients on, and also something I work in my own life, is realizing that the days are going to keep going regardless, whether I want to work on this or I don't. So in 3 weeks, 3 months time, I can still have all of this really heavy anger or resentment or this difficult pain, or I can start slowly tapping into it and allow myself to work through it. And 3 weeks, 3 months time, have a different point of view and a different feeling and a different outcome.
Yeah, I hear you on that because I've been down that journey as well, and it does take a certain amount of tenacity, but also patience and trust. trust that it is going to transform.
It takes a warrior.
It does. It really does. Can you share with us some of like your key experiences or even teachings that have really impacted you, that have kind of um impacted you in a way where it has now shaped your unique approach?
Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind is this is crazy to admit, but when I was younger, I called myself an atheist because of all the things I'd been through. I just like there could not be a God because God, a loving God, would not have exposed me to all of these circumstances. And I remember sitting with, I don't even remember who it was, but the words that they said to me really, really impacted me. And it was about the idea of the 80-20 rule. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, or some people call it the 80-20 trick or something like that. That 80% of your time as you're spending is in your mental capacity. So if you can spend, you can take the 80% and really focus on your mindset. The 20% is the action. So you focus mostly on your mindset and how you view your life, your world, things around you. And then only 20% of that actually has to be the action. So many of us are so focused on the doing of things that we kind of spin around in circles, that we don't really get much accomplished because we don't know what direction we're going in. So if you spend a lot of your time just focusing on your center, however that might be for you, just refining who you are, shedding past core beliefs, just refining who you're meant to be. And then the other 20% of action will just more or less unfold for you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I remember the first time someone actually called out that we have an internal dialogue, and I was like, oh, yeah. So even realizing that and then understanding that, a lot of that dialogue is like automatic based on our environment, based on our experiences, based on what we've been told and what we believe. And so I love that advice of or recommendation of like having a concerted effort of shifting that mindset. It really is transformative.
It really, truly is. I agree 100%. I think the other big teaching that or technique that has helped me so much is learning how to use altered states of consciousness to tap into my inner state of being. And some people call this inner child work. And I have this unique method that kind of uses inner child work in a really unique way, along with hypnosis. So you can tap into your subconscious and go back to certain events, but you're not reliving the event. You're just giving yourself what you needed in that time. So there's different versions of you that maybe need a little extra love or encouragement or really any sort of emotion, any sort of support that you didn't receive at that time. And you go back and you give it to yourself. And then also there's you might have heard this before too, that when you have a traumatic event, a lot of times you'll send a piece of your soul away. You'll send it off in order for survival. And so this brings in a soul retrieval piece, except you're retrieving that piece of soul on your own. So I'm facilitating them into this altered state of consciousness very safely, very securely, so they can call back in that soul piece, that soul fragment that's been missing from them, and give themselves the encouragement that they need, the love, the support, all of those really good, yummy feelings, so they can reconnect with that piece of themselves. And at the end of the session, they're usually walking away feeling so much lighter and having a complete different view on life because they've reclaimed and reintegrated a piece of themselves they'd sent away.
Mm, I love that. That's so beautiful. Um, as I'm somebody that has had various like personal challenges and spiritual awakenings, I'm curious to know from your perspective, what are like some of the most profound lessons or insights you've gleaned that you believe everyone can benefit from?
Oh gosh. So I'll just speak by the ones that have been the biggest challenge for me. And that is self trust, self love, and finding safety within myself. Those have been the biggest pieces that have just been a huge awakening in their own when I really work with them and deepen them on the next level. But also the biggest challenge for me to open up to and to move away that resistance. I learned years ago that I never knew what self-love really was because I spent so much long hating my body or trying to change into something else because society told me I wasn't pretty enough or skinny enough or charismatic enough or whatever it may be. I kept changing myself to try to fit into somebody else. And when you keep changing, you don't one know who you are. You kind of lose that special uniqueness of you. And I really resented who I was, who I was becoming, and who I originally thought myself to be because I didn't know what love was. So that was a really difficult piece for me to navigate through to know like, wow, I really don't love myself. And then working on all the practices to reclaim me and my authenticity. And that's a big part of shadow work in itself is reclaiming all those pieces that you just are discarded and told yourself that were shameful because those are usually the pieces that make you so beautiful and so truly unique and special, and all those idiosyncrasies that just no one else can mirror, right? Just it's just you in this beautiful package. And when I started reclaiming and refinding my quirks, my silliness, my bizarre moments, my unique, very unique pieces of me, that's when I really felt the sense of self-love. And that was a really beautiful process.
I love that. That's such a hard one. I also think that for me, the hardest was self-trust. I'm curious to know, where do you even begin with self-trust?
Yeah, that is a great question. It's such a profound question. And what has helped me the most, and has helped a lot of my clients, is learning to sit still just for a moment. We have a hard time trusting ourselves when we're being pulled in a million different directions. And so when we sit down, we be still, we maybe do an energetic cleansing, and you call back your own energy because a lot of us don't even really know what it is to be in our energy field. And so if we don't know what's us versus someone else versus these things that we're being programmed to think, hear, say, we don't know what's coming from us. So it's hard to trust ourselves when we don't know who ourselves really are. So by calling back your energy, by sitting in, I know some people hate this word, but yes, sitting in meditation for a few moments, whatever that may look like, doing some breath work, just allowing yourself to just start feeling into your body and feeling into your own essence. And that's what the big star is, just learning to find your energy. I think that's really the biggest gift that I can give anyone. And as a facilitator that we can provide to our clients is showing them what it's like to sit in their own energy.
Totally. Yeah, I think that that was one of the most powerful things that I learned as well. Like, oh wow, like I haven't felt my own energy in decades. In decades. And once you feel that, it's so powerful.
It's like, oh, this is home. This is a good feeling. You feel like a completely different person in the most beautiful way.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Um, can you tell us a little bit about like your program? What does that entail? How can people find you?
Absolutely. Yes. So my program, Sacred Alchemy, is a 12-week program, and we go through all of these sacred elements using their energetics and their qualities and their unique attributes to unlayer our different levels of emotional healing, physical healing, mental, spiritual, all the above. And we really dive into these practices that wholesomely and gently allow yourself to awaken your own inner healer. And it's a process we go through. It's kind of like I'm picturing a lasagna right now. There's all these different layers of the good meaty meal that you're ready to indulge in that you have to go through to start awakening that piece in you. And you have to let things come up as they do. So it's a really special community approach of holding space for one another and ourselves at the same time, and just sitting with all of the elements. We start with the earth element grounding practices, our number one, and working our way through around the sacred circle of these elements and just allowing our higher self to do most of the work. This is some people get kind of scared about shadow work and doing this deep work because it sounds like so difficult. But the way I approach this is that you let your higher self and your intuition guide you on this path. And you're just sitting there feeling, you're sitting there acknowledging and just being observant of what's going on.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And where can people find you?
Yes, thank you. I forgot about that part. So you can reach out to me at iamjourneyofthesacred.com. It's a beautiful affirmation just when you start typing it out. It's I am a journey of the sacred, has how it ends up looking when you type it out into the email. And I'm also available on Instagram at Warrior Transcendence. So there's many ways to get a hold of me. And my website is journeyofthesacred.com.
Beautiful. And all of those will be linked down below. So today we shared so many golden nuggets of where to start your own sacred alchemy, and share with us down below in the comments with an emoji what you thought about this episode. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Jazzy, so much.
So when you join my Patreon, you get the uncut version of each episode, and we go a lot deeper. For example, on this one, at the end, I talk about my recent awakening and my relation to the Black Jaguar. You get to catch the conversations before and after with each guest, and you get so many bonus types of content. So just for $3 a month, you support the podcast, and you help us move forward with interviewing more guests and learning on this journey. So join my Patreon to support.